Welcome to the Obstacle Dominator podcast, the show for athletes who want to become their best and inspire others in the process. Here we're going to dive deep into training tactics, race strategy, nutrition, mindset, and everything required to dominate the course and your life. Whether you're tackling your first race or already standing on podiums, this is where you can level up. There is always room for improvement, and it is time to push through those barriers and step it up a level, breaking both the physical and the mental walls to keep progressing. I'm your host, Matt Roberts, OCR athlete, coach, and guide to those committed to becoming healthier, happier, stronger, faster, to maximize their human potential now and always. I'll also be joined by the coaching team who are walking the walk, competing, staying current, and holding themselves to excellence. They are leading by example to inspire others to rise. We also bring on guest speakers who share real stories, real lessons, and proven methods that deliver results in performance, health, and mindset. Let us begin. All right, well, let's dive in, shall we? Welcome, Mitch. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Thanks for having me. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it's good to have you back on. It's been a while. Me and Chinny done the podcast last week on the off season, and I don't think we've hopped on the podcast since July. So it's been a little while, but we've been recording lots of episodes with the team as well. So they're being trickle fed out.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to hear everyone's stories come through and hear their success and growth as well, especially over this past year.
I know, man. This season's been really, really good, and I know we've tackled this completely different to how we have done it in previous years. Because I think really the only main races we done was West Virginia races, right?
Yeah, yeah, just jumping back into a championship event because that's how we do it.
Yeah, fortunately, I had 2 weeks at altitude, so that was the thing. It kind of got me through. That's it, like zero training and tip up and just be like, yeah, I've got a new set of lungs. It's great.
If it works, it works.
How not to do it? Maybe do both. Maybe do some training and then do some altitude training and see how that translates.
That'd be quite interesting. A good experiment for sure.
Yeah, and I wanna talk about West Virginia as well because I think that's going to be the most current and most relatable thing for us in terms of pacing, but then also pacing across set distances. And we're talking Spartan specifically, but what we're going to talk about is pacing in training as well as different types of races, and also like day to day, week in, week out training as well, and how to really execute workouts in a proper way. Um, yeah, so we'll talk about individual workouts and really what we're trying to get out of those individual workouts and how to pace ourselves in those workouts so that we're not just going 100% for one interval and then that's it, we crash and burn and then we deteriorate and we can't sustain the paces and the targets that we want. Actually pacing ourselves so we get more and more out of it as the session goes on. But then also the crucial point is not absolutely obliterating ourselves. And this is really going to be the theme for the podcast is like optimizing is so much more than giving so much more at the front end and then deteriorating as time goes on and actually achieving less and at higher of a cost where your body's beaten up as well.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah. So I think this is pacing like an elite as an elite does. And I think the thing I want to mention first and foremost, and the thing that may come up for people as they're listening to this at the front end is I'm not an elite racer. So why would I pace like an elite? And the reason we want to start pacing like an elite racer is because they manage their energy 10 times better, maybe more than the average racer. And that doesn't mean that the a better person, they are just more experienced and more well versed. So we shouldn't be comparing ourselves in a negative way, going, oh, like they're here and I'm here and I've got this massive gap to bridge. Yeah, that may be true, but what they've done very effectively is learned how to pace themselves in training very effectively, and then when they're in race conditions, managing their pacing. Because this is something we actually saw in Pippingford as well at the last Spartan UK weekend, and me and you actually had the discussion at the races when we're watching the age group races come through, the elite races, we saw them as well going off, and then we saw the open heat races, and it's like, well, when you look at an elite racer, they look like they're going fast, and they are going fast, but they're consistently going fast. And then you look at the open heat race or some of the age group races where they're just walking. The question is, why is that happening? And really, it is the management of energy. So although an elite racer might be running ridiculously fast, like 3:30, 4 minute pace per kilometer across country, that's still submaximal for them. So although they're going fast, they're not maxing out. They're not redlining. They're not obliterating themselves, because anyone can crush himself in a workout or a race, but not everyone can diligently manage their pace. So that's really, really key. And open heaters, age group races, when you see them walking, it's because they've blown up. They've gone too hard from going too hot out of the gate. They've gone too hard on a particular part of the course. They've raced too hard with other competitors. So there's a lot of key factors here, but elite racers generally manage their pace a lot better. And it's not just because they're fitter, but you can imagine now, like, let's just say like a competitive racer, an age group racer, if they go hot out the gate and then push really, really hard in the opening part of the race, inevitably they're going to fade. But an elite racer, yeah, he'll go hot out the gate, but they're still sub-maximal, and then be able to sustain that and potentially build into it. And we'll go into the different types of splits that we can use in races, but ultimately we want to play into our own strengths.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see the difference between, we know open is more fun for fun races, and you've got the semi-competitive age group, and then obviously you've got the elite, and just watching them, how it reminds me of being back in the army, and you've got the 1 mile best effort, and you see everyone just sprint off at the beginning trying to get ahead because they want to lead the race. But when you're doing that, you're tipping over into zone 5, you're pushing VO2 max straight away, which is going to lead to burnout very quickly, and it's not sustainable over the long term. And if you're trying to win the race at the beginning of the race, then that's a mindset thing that you need to work on within your training as well, because you win the race at the end of the race, not at the beginning.
Mm.
But being able to maintain a pace for so long, it takes time to get there as well. It takes months and years of practice to really dial in and be in tune with your body to maintaining it.
Yeah, for sure. And this is practiced in training, and we've had discussions this week about a number of our athletes coming back into training after taking a bit of time off and really being diligent, sticking to their paces and the targets and the heart rate zones. And inevitably, what happens if you take 2, 3, 4 weeks off, like me and Matt Chin discussed in the off-season one? Obviously there's going to be an element of deconditioning, because if you don't use it, you start to lose it. The body adapts to the stimulus that's provided on it, and if there's no stimulus provided on it, it will slowly but surely wither away. But we're not talking about just having peak fitness and maintaining peak fitness all year round, because it's not sustainable. Yeah, we have to have the ebbs and the flows, and we have to build up and then hit the peak and then dial back to keep ourselves in the game time and time again. So what we're going to talk about is this as an immediate performance enhancer. And I was actually having a conversation in the sauna a couple of days ago with a guy who just done a high rocks, and I was talking about people that we've coached and helped with high rocks training. And I remember one of the first people we put through it, they were like, "Oh, here, look at my stats." And I was like, "Well, you've got another race coming up in about 6 weeks. Realistically, are we going to improve your fitness drastically? No. Maybe you can sharpen a little bit, but here's an immediate performance enhancer. Let's look at how you paced everything. Let's look at how you paced yourself. And if we paced ourselves better here, here, and here at the start of the race, actually that would leave you a little bit more gas in the tank for the back end of it. And lo and behold, rejig the race plan and hit a PR. So it is an absolute game changer. Now, we want to do these things simultaneously. We want to increase our fitness, but also having a different race strategy is going to be absolutely key. And the first thing with that is you versus you. So you want to play into your strengths. And then where we actually practice this is in training. And we said it to our guys this week. They're like going out and doing the zone two, the baseline assessments. They're like, oh, I'm going running really slow and I'm having to walk. Great. Are you in zone two? Perfect. Okay, great. Well, the route you chose is the one that you chose before, and maybe you're not going as fast as you did last time, but you've just taken a period of time off. All it is giving us is a snapshot of where we're at right now in terms of our fitness, which also shows us the room that we need to grow into. And then that with a training program and a deadline, that's going to allow us to get to work. But also that's an opportunity to go, okay, I need to dial it back a little bit. Okay, now I need to increase my pace, or okay, I just need to be as consistent across the board here as possible. And we're going to talk about something called grade adjusted pace as well shortly, and I'll bring up some screenshots from the Trifecta World Championships as well, so people can have the comparable. Because there's a whole mindset and educational piece that goes around this, and the stuff. I'll be honest, the stuff that we've got here and put together, I was a little bit apprehensive at sharing because it is an immediate performance answer. It's what we personally use, and it's is what we give to our athletes. And this is like based on a lot of analytics, a lot of data, a lot of personal experience through racing ourselves, but then also coaching other people through the process as well. So if you really take on this advice, you will level up like significantly.
But it's being open to the information as well. And with pace work specifically, it's not easy. And what I mean by that is when you're doing a pace specific work. So, to give an example, say you're doing, and this is one of my favorite sessions that I've ever done. Say we're doing 6 by 1 kilometer efforts, and each kilometer you want to be running the same pace. But if you get, say, the average person and you look at their splits, they could be doing, say, 4:05, then 4:2, then 4:3, then 3:59, then 4:06. There's no balance within those splits. So you could be hitting lactate threshold, you could be hitting VO2 max. Whereas when it's pace specific, you want to be sticking to that pace and being consistent. The way I used to do this all the time, and it was a game changer when Chinny had this programmed in, was the first 200 to 400 meters, my cadence would be shorter. I wouldn't be pushing as hard as I should be. I'd be going about 10 to 15 seconds slower. After those 400 meters, I had dialed in my form. I had found my arm drive, my cadence, my rhythm, my breathing. I've got the 600 meters to get to that pace. And I'd always get to it at least 200 meters before. And it's those last 200 meters where you just having to say to yourself, hang in, because it's uncomfortable. It's disgusting. Your lungs are burning. Your legs are screaming at you. And you've got to maintain it. Now, myself and Chinny did this. We did this session for over a 4 month period. So that session didn't change. The only thing that changed was the pace. And it got to a point where I was hitting 3:15 consistently. But again, while I was running that 1K lap, I was checking my watch. Right, am I running faster than the pace that's been prescribed? Yes, right, slow the fuck down. Straight away, I told myself, slow down. Because otherwise, I know it'd be harder in the last 200 to 400 meters to keep maintaining, especially when the rest period drops down from, say, 3 minutes to 2:30 to 2 minutes to then 90 seconds. Like you want to allow yourself to build over a period without overdoing it. But a lot of people, right, let's go as fast as we can. Now, Paul Taylor, one of our athletes, like he's got some big goals for next year. And he hates it, but loves it because I've said to him, stick to the pace. And it's in capitals. I'm like, watch your fucking pace. Stick at it. Like, be consistent. Don't overdo it. There's reasons behind it, and we're going to go through those reasons as well. And he's slowly getting faster and faster and faster. And it's incredible to see what can happen when you are consistent with the pace instead of pushing and letting your ego take over. Even if you feel like you've got more in the tank, that doesn't mean go do more. You've got to trust the plan, because that's where we're using the statistics and it works.
For sure. And it's being diligent to really, really monitor that, track that over time, and really stick to it. And then on top of that, it's the consistency, because if we lack the consistency, so say for instance, we have a 2 or 3 week training block, and then all of a sudden we don't train for 2 or 3 weeks, or we have subpar sessions, or we don't hit numbers, or we're just flippantly going out, we don't really know what's going on, and there could be an element of deconditioning. And I think we spoke about reversibility, or the law of reversibility, on the last episode. But if you miss a training session, then it's probably going to take you one more training session to get back there, and probably one more to progress beyond that. But what Mitch is talking about really is the same methodology as like progressive overload. So if you're training strength in the gym, you want to be endeavoring to add some form of progression. Now, a lot of people will try and whack 10 kilos extra on the deadlift and just, yeah, see where they're at and whatever else. But how long and consistently can you do that for? Is it a matter of weeks? Probably, before you hit a roadblock, because we're not only looking to increase strength, we're looking to actually condition the connective tissue, the muscles, the joints, absolutely everything, so that we can deal with that training load. And really, fitness is how quickly we bounce back from a session. If we go too hard on a session, whether that's too fast and in terms of pacing, or we lift too heavy, what's the cost going to be, and how long is that going to take for you to recover on top of that? So we want to apply the minimum effective dose. And what Mitch is saying is just diligently stick to the same pace for every single interval. One, you're hitting the target pace that you want, but more than likely probably a little bit lower in some instances. In some instances, it could be faster than that, to really put a bit of stress on the body in order to cause the adaptation. But we're not doing more than we can actually deal with, because if we do that, then there's going to be fatigue, which means we're not going to be hitting those consistent numbers for other intervals, which means we get less out of the training session, and which means it'll probably take us longer to recover off the back of that as well. So this is why it's important to actually have the figures, have the statistics, and we spoke about this in the off-season podcast, is having the baseline level assessments. It blows my mind the amount of people that do their own training, for one, and never assess where they're at. They just throw themselves into training without actually understanding where they are. They just mentally go, well, I was here previously, and that could have been 6 months ago, so I'll start here again. But like we just said, with the law of reversibility, so there's a little bit of ego there, a little bit of lack of understanding, some mindset stuff there, rather than building back in progressively. And then also understanding it's going to take time to build back up to where you are, and it's being okay with that. Because if we try and force change before the body is actually ready to, more than likely something's not going to work out, and you're going to reach a setback. So it's looking at things in terms of years and months, and working back from that. And then when you've got the stats, you can go, okay, well, is that realistic? How did I feel? And the only thing is, or the other thing on top of that, is not just how you perform in that session, because a lot of us can base our overall performance based on one single session, when in actual fact there's a lot of other external influences, like how did you sleep the night before? Do you have caffeine in your system? Is that affecting your heart rate? Did you eat properly? Yeah, how are your levels of stress? What time of day are you training? So all these other factors come into play. So when we talk about consistently, we want to have all of those variables as consistent as possible. So if you're due to go and do some form of flat and fast time trial, but you've got a really crappy night's sleep, and then you've been knees to chest throughout your day, you've been super busy and you're stressed, you could look at it going, oh, this would be good. I can have a good outlet and go and do this 5K. Or you could take that off the calendar and just relax, and then revisit doing that at a later date. And when we do this and when we manage everything in such a way, it will allow us to perform better when we get round to doing that. But remember, we don't want to take massive leaps and take off 5 or 10 seconds off of uh, the pace per intervals. It might only be a second or two, and maybe not even every single week. One of the approaches we take is maybe a 6 week block, maybe an 8 week block of hitting the same paces, so that you're building confidence that you can hit those paces and sustain those paces over that time period. And then when you get to the end of that training block, then make a big progression. Another option would be to add that progression in a very, very small way every 1 to 2 weeks. Both work. It's just what works well for you as well. But we need the consistency. And this is another thing as well. Often people have too much variety in their training program, where one week they're doing something and then the next week they're doing something that looks completely different. How can we monitor progress? How can we apply progressive overload? The only marker is, am I getting stronger? Am I getting faster? And then if you haven't got the data, you don't know where you're at. Therefore, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know if you're going to hit your goal. So that's really the first thing. What I want to go on, unless you've got anything to add as well, is like the pacing within training and different bits of equipment and different environments and terrain as well.
No, I've got nothing to add on to that. I think we've covered quite a bit there, and the message is definitely came across of like sticking to the pace and having the statistics so you can see exactly where you're at, and that it's okay to do the same sessions for 8 weeks. Like, to give an example, I'm in a rebuild phase right now. This is a 16-week block, 4 months doing the same workouts each week, but with slight progressions. Sometimes not every month, maybe there will be, because it's just allowing myself to build back up into it. Go looking at the long term instead of, I think a lot of people get into that mindset of how fast or strong can I get within the quickest period. And that does not work. It leads to injuries, it leads to burnout, and it can destroy your health in the long term as well when you're putting so much stress on the nervous system. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. All these things are interrelated as well, and that's why we often cover and talk about the same things over and over, because yeah, there is correlation between all of these things. So let's dive in to talking about training and pacing during training, and this comes from me personally getting it wrong a lot. Okay, so with us saying this, we're not only saving you time by gifting you this information. If you implement it, you will get a lot of results, because yeah, I've done things wrong a lot through race experience and training. So every training session is an opportunity to improve yourself. It's not just about increasing your fitness. it it counts for the mental aspect as well. Like, how can I manage this pace? Can I push the ego aside? If I'm training with other people, can I push the ego aside and not get caught up into it? And yesterday, I'd done a long run with a group of guys, and we actually had two groups, a slower group and a little bit of faster group. And in the faster group, it was like, hey, push the ego aside. If you start drifting out of the zone that you need to be in, drop back. And it just become this beautiful thing once I stated that, where it's like, yeah, I'm going too fast, need to back off a little bit, and that was it. And even at points I was at the back and I was like, yeah, I need to bring my heart rate down a little bit. But the whole point of training and the precise sessions that we do in training is to develop that particular area in that particular session. So there's not just that, but there's also the opportunity to manage your pacing and work on your mindset. Yeah, because when we're talking about pacing, we're not always just going really, really fast. We're going to be talking about like the easier training as well. So there's loads of things that um, come into play here, and that's the conditions that you're training in. So could be the weather that can have an effect. Could be food, levels of stress. It could be levels of sleep as well. But there's different environments we can also train in. It could be in the gym, could be on a skill mill, we could be on a treadmill, we could be on a bike, we could be rowing, we could be using the ski erg, we could be running on the road, we could be running on a mixture of road and trails or cross country or trails and cross country. And all of these things are good for variety. But here's the thing, your pacing on the road is going to be different to what it is on the treadmill, and it'll be different from the trail and going cross country. And then that'll be a difference between doing that in training and a difference between that doing that in races as well. And we spoke about this on one of the team calls the other day. It's not getting too caught up in the data, because I had a session last week or the week before where I done a threshold session on the treadmill, and I've got the treadmill telling me one thing, I've got Garmin telling me something else, then I've got my own perceived exertion telling me one thing. So my treadmill's saying that I'm running like 3:45 pace, my watch is telling me that I'm running 5.5 minutes per kilometer, and then my RP is like fucking, I'm like at a 7 or 8 here, so I know that I'm on pace, but one's telling me faster, one's telling me slower. So this is why it's important to, yeah, not just get caught up in the data, but go based on feel as well. And then we also mentioned the grade adjusted pacing alongside the RPE as well. So this is where it comes down to having an open mind and understanding each of these and how they actually affect your pacing. Because I know a lot of people, if they're just running cross country or on trails, they're like, wow, I can't even imagine hitting a 4 minute per kilometer pace. It's like, well, yeah, because you're running cross country, you're probably running on mud or grass or up and down hills. So of course it's not going to feel very sustainable. But then when you run on a track or on the road, then you're like, well, actually this is a little bit more easy. Why? Because it's flat and you can hit a consistent pace. um, and with a treadmill as well, I'd say it's a great tool, but also it can be quite frustrating if you know that you're putting in more of an effort. So what I'm trying to say here is, like, treadmill, really predominantly what I go off is RPE, so the rate of my perceived exertion, one being lowest, 10 being highest. Second one I'll go for is my heart rate, and then use that. So is there anything you want to add at this stage, Mitch, before I bring up some stats?
No, there's a couple of things I'll dive into about lactate threshold and VO2 max, but we'll stay on track with gap for the time being.
Okay, so the gap is your grade adjusted pacing, and it's something Strava uses. So I'm going to compare a couple of different races actually. So I've got a beast race, which I'll bring up now. And then we'll look at a super and potentially a sprint as well. So here we go. We've got distance, kilometer, time it's taking to run the kilometer, and then the actual pace that translates to, which is going to be the same as the distance, the time. And then the gap is the grade adjusted pacing. So something that hasn't actually got on here is the elevation, the ups and downs. I don't know if that's something that can be added on there. Okay, here we go. So it's on a different one. So my actual pace was 5:20 in the first kilometer. Bearing in mind we've got carries and going up and down hills. All right, if that wasn't all there, then the grade adjusted pacing would be about 30 seconds faster at that pace. All right, so that's what it does. Like, it shows us what the adjusted pace would be if we didn't have the elevation and the obstacles. All right, so it's a super good one, because otherwise, what happens without having this understanding, you feel like you're going really, really fast on the race, but then your pace doesn't look it. So you're like, well, how could I ever achieve that pace that I feel like I need to get? But actually not understanding this. Okay. So on the 10th kilometer, I ran like an 8 minute and 18 second kilometer, but then the gap for that was basically 3 minutes faster. Yeah, so I mean, none of these are particularly fast, but I mean, there was swims in this and all sorts of stuff going on. So it's accounting for the gradients, whether you're going up and down and the obstacles. So it's a really, really good tool to check out. Now, if we look at a shorter distance race and something that's a bit faster, then, so this is the super in West Virginia. then you can see that the times have already come down. Yeah, so the faster you got like some 4.5 minute kilometers there. So it's a really useful tool, and it also helps mentally as well when you think that you're running really slow. But I remember for the Beast race, I wasn't even looking at pacing. I mean, I was aware of like the approximate pace I was going per kilometer, but there's no part of the course that's the same. It's not like running around the track or a flat road race. So what I was actually going off of was my perceived exertion, and then also I was going off of my heart rate zones as well, because I knew at each point of the race, if I was going too hard, then I'm going to deteriorate. So there's a couple of things to talk about, and we were just speaking about um, the part of the Jack Daniels formula or his teachings, and it's like for every second at the start of a race you go out too hot, you deteriorate up to 5 seconds in the back end of the race. Yeah, so it's significant. So you go too hot out the gate on a race, you're going to feel that in the back end of the race. Anything to add at this stage, Mitch?
Yeah, I've never seen you mince it so much in a 21k.
I was having a good time.
um, so yeah, let's give an example of the Jack Daniels formula. So like the 5k example, like where you mentioned if you go out too hot at the beginning, you're losing time. So say for example, your target pace was 4 minute kilometers and you want the goal finish was 20 minutes. Your first kilometer, you go out at 3:55. That's 5 seconds too fast. You'll end up fading and becoming fatigued on the last 2 kilometers because you've gone out too hot. So how those splits would look like: your first kilometer would be 3:55, your second kilometer would be 4 minutes, your third, fourth, and fifth would be 4:05. So that leads 20 minutes 10 seconds. So because you wanted to go out a little bit faster than usual at the beginning, you've lost 10 plus seconds at the end. It's cost you massively. And what is beneficial is training yourself to, if you are someone that enjoys going hot out the gate, training 50 to 100 meters, right, max out sprint, and then go into your pace. So that way, you've conditioned yourself, want to go hot out the gate, but then to get back into your pace as soon as possible. You've let the ego take over. You know you've gone out too hot. Right, let me slow down, get back into the rhythm. So you're training your body, that muscle memory and that mental stimulus. Okay, right, I know I've gone out too hot. Let me slow it down. Even if people take over, because then you'll still hit that pace, that first pacing correctly by the end, and you've conditioned yourself for it as well. And this is something that we've done with a lot of our athletes. It's what I've done with myself because I used to go really hot out the gate. I did it in Andorra, and that was my biggest mistake that I made. That was my worst race of the season. It was my slowest race. The obstacle efficiency had dropped massively because I had burnt out, all because I let my ego overtake me and I was there trying to beat my main competitor when I should have just stuck to my own race and the pacing and the tactics. So it's important to train for any specific moment that may come up in a race.
Yeah, Mitch is exaggerating a little bit about his worst race. I mean, he comes second place in the European Championships in that particular race, but it was a bad day for him.
I've never, it's never took me over 4 hours to complete 21k, but that just, yeah.
But this is it. It's a different animal. I think a lot of UK racers that haven't done races in Europe or the States, they're not prepared for the mountains. But yeah, it's a different ball game when you go out there and you do a beast race, and it's double the amount of time you would do it in the UK. But this is it. It's pacing and understanding that, and this is part of what we're talking about in terms of the environment as well. Like know your terrain. Yeah, know the conditions. Yeah, like know yourself, know the competitors, know your race plan, and how you're going to go about that. But then also be flexible and adaptable to change in those moments as well. Because a big problem we see is people getting sucked into the race and other racers' plan, and that takes them out of their race plan. I constantly reference this to the community, but I remember one particular beast. It was the end of the season. I think it might have been 2019, and I had a very, very good season in age group and picked up a bunch of gold medals. And really going into this last race, it was going to, I think the national series had finished, so it was just like going for a podium. I think it was a beast race at Windsor, and everyone shot off, and I was relatively near the back of the pack. But 10 kilometers in, because I paced myself and I just let them go, I just picked off one by one by one, and ended up winning the race in my category because of that. Now, yeah, that just goes to show that if you know yourself and you pace yourself correctly, you're going to get a lot more out of yourself. And this is really valuable. And I still use this and teach this, but you're just asking yourself questions during the race. And you can use that 1 to 10 scale, so the RPE scale, 1 being lowest, you could look at that as 10% effort, and then 10 being 100% effort. Ask yourself, based on the distance that you are racing and how far into that race you are, where am I on that scale? Okay, I'm in a beast and I'm 10k into that beast and I'm running an 8 out of 10 RPE. Okay, so I'm running at 80% effort, 10k into a beast. Is this sustainable? No. How long can I sustain this? I can't. Okay, so bring the pace down. Now, if I'm running at a 5 and I'm the first few kilometers into a race, I could probably up the ante a little bit more. So therefore, I bring it up. So you're just asking yourself questions throughout. Where am I right now? Okay. Can I sustain this pace? Yes. Good. Can I give it a little bit more? Yes. Okay. Up the ante a little bit. Can I give it a bit more? No, I'm fine. And this goes onto the terrain as well, like pacing yourself on the individual bit of terrain. And this is something else we teach is presence and focus. I mean, we have all the game plan and we do all the preparation and then we go out there and execute it. But what can happen is we can get sucked into the race, the other racer's plan, and start thinking about obstacles that we might not be as competent at, or a swim or whatever that's further down the line. But all of that takes us out of the present moment. And after all, that's all that we have. So stop thinking of everything else and everyone else and just start thinking about you and how to do the best that you can do right now. And if that's running on the flat, drop into that gear, settle into that pace. How long can I sustain this? Okay, I can sustain this, keep going. You then hit an incline. Can I run up it? No. Okay, settle into a power hike. Okay, great, I can sustain this. I come to a downhill. How hard can I go on this? Oh, this is a little bit too hard. Let's back off. So you're assessing where you're at in that moment and also how far into that race you are. And it's going to be different from doing an ultra to a beast to a super to a sprint. Because if you're running a beast, like you just saw with my beast stats, I was kind of running at zone 3 for the majority of it. And I know that's not my favorite distance. I wasn't conditioned to that distance, so I just kind of settled into a pace that I know I could consistently do. Yeah, and it paid big. Yeah, because I wasn't playing into other races and trying to keep up with other people that were faster than me. I just caught them on the obstacles and was just having this chicane of backwards and forwards, exchanging places throughout the whole race. Whereas on the sprint, I know that I just need to go hard. Yeah, and have a flawless race. So it's different game plans. Okay, and your game plan is your game plan. So you've got to know yourself, and the way we know ourselves is through training and understanding our paces and pushing our ego to the side and really sticking diligently to the plan. Yeah, and going back to the elite races, there's a big thing within the elite field within the UK that they set off super hot. So they're doing something called a positive split. So they go up really, really hot, put a gap on the field, and then settle into their pace. It's kind of the opposite of what we're saying, but it's yet again very effective. The opposite of that is the negative split, and that's what we're talking about. starting at your own pace, build into the pace, leaving a little bit in the tank so actually you can finish really, really strong. And bearing in mind, the hotter you go out the gate, the more deterioration in the back end of the race. Okay, and you can see that as well. So imagine like you start, you see the pack disappear into the distance. Some guys will sustain that, but remember what we said, that pace is relative to them and where they're at and how conditioned they are based on their training, their consistency, their level of experience. If you try and play into that game, you're going to blow up. So play into your game, okay, and run your race, and that's the thing that's going to get you closer to towards the top of the field within your competitive categories. Cool, but going back to what Mitch was saying with like the front loaded intervals, this is a great way to practice as well. 10 to 15 seconds hot at the start of an interval, then settle into the pace. Yeah, so there's numerous things that we can do in training to help with that, or we can just do a neutral split where we're aiming to hit the same paces every single time, or we're going to do a negative split, start a little bit slower and increase the pace. But whatever you choose to do, stick to one thing, try it out, see if it actually is effective and making progress in a particular area that you want, and then that will give you some answers, and then don't change it too soon.
Yeah, I think with the intervals, whether you're doing VO2 max, like training VO2 max or training lactate threshold, I've found it's really powerful to have those same sessions for at least 2 months, because you're having progressive overload either each week or every 2 weeks. You're allowing your body to adjust to that pace to maintain it, and it's allowing you to improve your speed or your ability to maintain at threshold for a longer duration. Now, I was looking into Jack Daniels.
Yeah, right on. Super, super valuable. And for a big period of time, what we used to say and still do is go slow to go fast. But what we really mean by that is optimizing the intensities, the pacing, and really managing what you're doing within training. And we've seen over the years massive, massive changes. I mean, this goes on to the energy systems and where the individual athlete is at and where they're at in the season and how well developed each of their energy systems are and what they need to prioritize in that moment. But for the most part, a lot of people focus too much on the speed and then going too fast with the speed. And I've spoken to some people this week already. It's like, oh, I've hit a plateau and I don't really know where to go. I'm doing the training. I was like, well, how much training are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm doing lots. So they're doing plenty of training. So it's not the frequency of the training, it's the intensity and therefore the frequency of the intensity of the training, which is eating into their recovery. So it's coming at a cost. And we've seen it time and time again. I remember one of the guys a few years ago mentioned Dan a few times on it, but he's a fast guy. I mean, we were looking at his run times. We're like, holy crap, he's fucking running through forests at some ridiculous pace for like half marathons. But that come because we stopped doing the speed work for, I think it was either 5 or 6 months, and we just really developed his aerobic base. So went back to slow training. And I remember him like having a bit of a tantrum, like fucking and then when we done the assessments at the back end of it, he blew all of his run times out the park. So an incredibly fast runner, already running fast, but had hit a wall because he'd been neglecting developing one particular area of his training. And then when that was optimized in amongst all the other things, the slow training really paid off and made him go faster. I was also speaking to a guy a couple of years ago who was applying Ron Hill's method of running a minimum of a mile every day. And I was like, so what are you doing on that? Are you running fast? He's like, no, I just run based on how I feel on that particular day, but every single day I'll run at least a mile. And he was just doing zone 2 work. And I think he managed to get something like a 16-minute 5K because just every single day he was just doing slow training. Obviously, there's more to it. We do need an element of speed work, and we want to make sure that we're covering all angles, and that's certainly what we do with our training. We're making sure that we got the VO2 max work, the lactate threshold work. Yeah, we've got the compromised running aspects, which blends the running with the obstacles, which is important for OCR. Then we obviously have the OCR specific sessions, grip sessions, yeah, the easy training sessions, the cross training, categorizing each race. What was the last thing you heard? All right. So yeah, what I was saying is there's a lot more to it with the structure of the overall training. So we're making sure that we're covering all angles. We're hitting the VO2 max. We're hitting the lactate threshold to develop those areas. Also, we're doing the aerobic base training. We're hitting the grip. We're blending all of that together. We're doing strength work. We're doing mobility, flexibility. We're taking rest and recovery. But at the same time, we're working on our general health, our sleep, our nutrition, all of these things which actually enhance the physical aspects as well. So really it's full body, total life optimization. But if you listen to any of the episodes with the team, it's all a lot simpler than listening to what I'm just saying and sounding really complex and oh, how can I fit that in? Here's the thing, like you're already training, you're already sleeping, you're already eating. Let's just optimize each of those so that you get more return on investment for the time that you're spending doing those. And that's really the point of making sure that you've got the breakdown of the training sessions in the right way and optimizing everything within those training sessions and within other aspects of life to give you leverage to focus on just showing up and just doing the work with a very simplistic but very impactful approach. Mm. Yeah, absolutely, entirely. I'll just give a little bit more context on the importance of developing each of these individual areas, and that's what each training session is. In this training session, we are going to do this because this develops this precise area. That is why we do it, and we must make sure that we're covering all of those bases, all of those angles. I said to the guys yesterday on the long run, the first 5 minutes we were running across these fields, and in the first 5 minutes we looked back, and I said, this is the difference between having a developed aerobic system and not. Look behind you. And within the first 5 minutes of running, the guys are 200 meters behind that are in group two. So what does that translate to in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours into a race? So specifically looking at ultra runners. So if you've got a higher capacity to move faster because you've got more developed energy systems in that precise area, you're going to move faster, go further for less effort. So why not train yourself appropriately so that you can do that? And the same for the faster paces ones, uh, faster paced energy systems that we're looking to develop. Nice. So really, I mean, if you optimize this, yeah, you're gonna improve your performance significantly. Yeah, and then when you blend this with the obstacle training as well, it's an absolute game changer. And yeah, like we said, like elite runners run consistently and finish very strong because they're managing their pace. As an age group racer, that's what you need to do. As an open heat racer, obviously have fun, but from what we see and hear, a lot of people do want to step it up. And another way to step it up is to step up into a more competitive category. So here's a call for age group racers to step into elite, especially top three age group national series. You want to be going elite next year. There's nothing to stop you. Yeah, you pace yourself appropriately, you increase the ceiling, therefore you've got more opportunity to grow into as well. And same for age group racers that are aspiring to get those top three. Manage your pace, be consistent with your training, and you'll bridge a lot of gaps and move yourself up the field. And the same for open heat races. Yeah, you're feeling the call to step up into more competitive category. Well, there you go. You just sign up for the red headband. You're going to level up immediately because the path is clearer. And watch how that translates. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. This is it, and this goes on to the mindset piece, and maybe something we'll tackle as well. But yeah, we'll cover that in another topic. So yeah, really just to summarize on this, really like to become a better racer, like the opportunities come within your training sessions. So look at what's on those training sessions, and then ask yourself, okay, is the appropriate thing on this training session that I'm looking to achieve a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months, a year? If the answer is no, then you need to look at where you're at. And in order to look at where we're at, we need to assess, we need to understand. And then once you understand, then you can look at what areas need to be developed in order to bridge that gap. And then contained within that is managing the pace diligently so that you can actually make the progressions. Okay, but like we said, we don't want to be making progressions vastly all at once. We want to make sure that there's progressive overload bit by bit over time. Yeah, building day by day, week by week, month by month, year in, year out. And really that's the best way to go, because you are consistent over time versus, like Mitch mentioned, the short-term intensity approach, which often leads to burnout or injury pretty quick. So yeah, play it smart, train smart, and yeah, see where that really takes you. Well, we hope you took value on this. There's obviously a lot more to it, but yeah, let us know if you've got any questions, and if you need any support on any of this, then yeah, just give us a shout. All right, welcome back, and we'll do it again sometime. All right, cheers, man. Have a good day. Bye. That is it for today's episode of the Obstacle Dominator podcast. Thank you for listening. If you gained value from this episode or any others, all we simply ask is you share that with one other person. This one simple share could be the breakthrough that they need to get unstuck and start making progress again, and support more athletes to become healthier, happier, stronger, and faster human beings. If you feel called, please leave a review, tap the stars, give us a rating, head over to YouTube and subscribe, or just simply follow the show. These simple action steps go such a long way in helping us reach more athletes over time, and we'd love for you to be part of that. Proximity is power. If you are an athlete that's ready to take your performance up a level, then join us over on the OCR School. This is a community where you can surround yourself with the right people as you learn and as you rise. Learn from athletes who are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, getting results, body and mind, everyone from first-time finishers to podium winners and champions. Until next time, keep training hard, keep living prepared, keep dominating the obstacles in life and in competition.